All right, guys, on the show today, we have Will Collier of Dead Bird Barbecue. You might have heard of him. Kind of a big deal on the SCA trail right now. Has a very popular line of rubs that's killing it. My boy Steve Conway out there winning with it. Will, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, what's up, man? I appreciate you having me on. No problem.
So yeah, dude. So where did it all come from? You're doing KCBS, moving into SCA. Where did all this begin?
Honestly, I was strictly doing KCBS. I started doing KCBS in 2017 was the first year I really started cooking in them. And then I think I did 10 contests in 2018. And then in 2018, I hadn't even heard of SCA until I was doing a KCBS contest in the middle of 2018, and they had a SCA competition on the Friday night. So it was a Friday night SCA, Saturday KCBS, and I entered the SCA. Had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that people that cook steaks, and it was a ribeye competition. So I signed up, and I ended up getting first place. So from there, I was super happy. And then like the KCBS the next day, I think I got a call or maybe 2 calls and finished top 10 overall or 15. But going home, I was like, man, that SCA stuff, that was awesome. I first place $1,000, and I only paid $100 to do it. And it was laid back. I had time to just kind of hang out and socialize. And KCBS, I'm not much of a socializer. Whenever I'm doing KCBS, I'm always busy, always doing something. So it's just totally different realm of things and totally different aspect. And that was kind of the start of the SCA. That was when I very first got like the SCA bug. And at that time, my rubs didn't exist. The only rub that I had was my pork rub. So I had created that, and I was using my pork rub in 2018 in KCBS. And then the other rubs came along kind of after that. But once I got that first bug, got that first win, I went to Arkansas the next weekend. I just found another SCA contest. We drove to Arkansas and competed against like 58 teams, and I got 6th. And then I went to Missouri the next weekend, and then I got 10th there. And then from there, I was just like, man, I like the SCA stuff. It's just easy to pack up the car, just throw a grill in the truck or the car, and then run down and cook a steak and hang out with, some really great people that you meet along the way.
Kind of a crazy ride because, I mean, you haven't really been doing it long, and you're already just kind of killing it. Won the Oklahoma State Championship, all that stuff. You already have a rub that's just killing it. It's funny because I have this guy on Instagram who messages me all the time, and I want to say he's from Alabama or something like that. And he's my little go-to guy, right? He got me like, he's like, hey man, you should get this rub. It's hitting down here, and I'll get it. And it's like before anyone else. And one of those was, dude, you got to get these DB 180s and start using them on your steak. So I got it right away, and it was early on, and started using it. And now everyone knows what it is. I'm not cool and hip, and I can't get on that stuff. This guy is my insider. And if you're out there, bro, I'm looking, keep me coming. But yeah, so he was telling me about DB 180, and I gotta say, dude, these rubs are out of sight. And you use them in combination. You have a new one I haven't tried yet, the Grill All, and so I'm excited to get on that one too. But man, Steve Conway, he's actually one of your what do you call him? Team members, something like that.
Yeah, he's a sponsored cook.
His steak is out of this world. So you kind of come into the game. Where do these rubs come from? Because like I said, you've kind of new.
Yeah. Well, so when you say you got in on it early, did you get it whenever it had the white label on it?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So yeah. So what happened was I was creating in 2018. Was it? I'm trying to remember if it was 2018 or 19. I want to say, I'm trying to think if it, and like I have a total brain fart here. You know, it was 2019 when I really started doing the rubs, because when I won that first SCA, I wasn't using my rubs. I won it using Cosmo's cow cover hot. That's all I put on the steak. I just coated it in it and then cooked it, and then I got first place. So I went to the world championship that year and I made the final round. And then in 2019 is when I really started creating the DB 180 line. My pork rub was my first rub that I created, and I was just using it in KCBS. So when I first created it, I wasn't really sure what to call it. I was like, well, dead bird. And I've had a lot of people say like, oh, dead bird, that doesn't sound appetizing. So whenever I got to trying to think about what I wanted to name the rubs, I had that pork rub. I made it, and I got a 180 in 3 of my first 5 contests using it in the pork category. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to call this one DB 180 because I got 3 180s with it. And I only do 10 contests a year. I was only doing 10 contests a year in KCBS. So when I got 180s in like 3 of those 10, that was what I wanted to name that rub. But I still wasn't even looking at bottling it. And then I had a buddy that been doing KCBS for a little while, just getting calls here and there. They hadn't really ever got over the hump to finish top 5 in anything really. And he asked me if I'd make him a batch of my pork rub because they were going to an invitational KCBS event in Kansas City. And I was like, sure, man, I'll make it for you. Sent him with a hand batch. They got first place in pork. Nice. And then finished as reserve grand champion. And then he called me the next day and he was like, dude, you have to bottle this. So that's when I kind of started the process of making the very first, what is now my perfect pork rub. That's what started it all. I started making that. I didn't start creating the steak and beef until the 2019 season. I started creating a steak and beef rub because I was like, well, I was able to do the pork rub. I'm just going to start messing around and doing a steak and beef rub and then using it on the SCA circuit and see how I do. Just experiment, and I'll make hand batches and I'll go cook with it. And then I'll see how I do. And then if I don't do good, then I'll scrap it or I'll change one thing at a time after a few contests worth of data. So making the steak and beef rub, I ended up hitting in almost, it's just a high percentage of the SCA contests I was doing. I can't remember exactly how many I hit in, but I want to say leading up into the world championship last year, I finished top 10 in 8 contests in a row. And then at the world championship, I ended up finishing 16th in my heat. So I had, in that heat, I still had I had a 50 in appearance and I had the highest taste score, but my texture was really, really low. So it dropped me out of the top 10 on that. And then I was a little bit, after getting 8 calls in a row, going to the world championship, turned in what I thought was a really good steak and just barely missing out on it. I was a little bit bummed. But what I ended up doing was the next week, or it was either the following week or the week after that, I went to the World Food Championship and I cooked in that. And there I changed everything up and was trying to do crazy stuff. And then when, I get to doing that, it's sometimes experimenting and changing things that are working. And I didn't do as good there. So that was on a Saturday in Dallas. On that Sunday, they had a contest in Springfield, Missouri. And I just said, I was so upset with the fact that I changed things. I ran to Missouri that Sunday and ran what I was running before with my steak and beef rub, and I got first place. And then I won my golden ticket like 2 weeks into the season last year. And then a lot of people were requesting that I get it bottled and look into getting it bottled because they'd seen how I was doing towards the end of the 2019. So I just kind of started looking into the process from there.
And I want to clarify something. What I mean by being new, you're 3 years into SCA, and that's kind of a grizzled vet. But I'm talking about with the seasonings is what I was trying to say. they kind of hit,
okay.
they kind of hit the scene. And I don't think I maybe one other kind of rub have I seen just kind of hit this hard, especially in this area everyone kind of talks about, and yours is one of them, and it hasn't been out long. That's what I meant.
Oh,
sometimes I
okay,
stumble over
yeah.
my words, Will. If you ever listen to the podcast, you'll know that my brain gets ahead of me and I ask, questions that my mouth just doesn't understand. But anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so yeah, brand new in the rub game. That's right. Once I finally got them, bottled, then I released them with a temporary white label, which is apparently the bottle that you got, which that hit in February of 2020. So we're right just over a year. Mm-hmm. So those hit and got to my house right at the beginning of February. And from there, it was just kind of, let's see how this does. And I just got lucky, and I had already been cooking since I cooked in SCA the previous year, and I was having success. And then I won the first competition of 2020, basically. Everything shut down because of COVID. And as soon as my rubs launched, everything kind of shut down. And I don't know if just people that kind of knew who I was ended up picking it up and then just trying it out. But I was fortunate enough to have quite a few very good cooks pick the rubs up and start using them. And they were like, yeah, man, this stuff is amazing. And my initial strategy was, when I first released it, I chose 15 cooks, 15 people that I had already had relationship with, that they already knew, that I had this rub, that it was coming out. They knew all that coming in. I didn't care if they were sponsored by other people. I didn't really care. I picked 15 people and I sent them each a bottle of my steak and beef. So once that happened, out of those 15 people, if I go back and look at the list, I bet 11 of them are still using it in their recipes on the trail today. So it was kind of one of those things where I decided just to try and do it that way, get it into the hands of people that I knew if they were going to use it, they were going to be out cooking, using it and promoting it promoting it without me having to even ask them to. And then I just got really lucky, and a lot of really, really good cooks decided to use it, liked it enough to put it into their recipe, and they started tagging it. And from there, I just noticed the influx of orders, or the requests were coming in. Hey, can you bring some of this to here? Bring some of this to there. And it just kind of took off. And when it started to take off faster than what I could really felt like I could keep up with, then I looked into it, and those temporary labels were just meant to be a temporary label. So then I really sat back and I started putting all my time into a rebrand. I wanted to do something different that wasn't out there. So that's what I think really has helped DB180 grow to the point that it is now, is my labels, coming out with my labels and the way that I did them and how they look. And it's just, they're real clean. They're high quality. I spend more on them. I think it's important, but I also use the ingredients that I use in DB180 are extremely high quality ingredients. I pay some friends that I have that I know make rubs as well. I pay almost twice as much as some of them even for my DB180, and I try and keep the cost that's being charged to the public about the same. So I'm taking a little bit less of a profit, but at the same time, I know that I'm getting what I want into the bottles, and then it's kind of put out there. And I think that once people get their hands on them, and they start using them, and they see the quality of ingredients that I used, and then the quality of the packaging, the labeling, and all the care that I put into it, I think it just kind of translated over. I've just been extremely blessed and fortunate that so many people decided to try it and then start promoting it and then start using it. And that's what really sets the SCA apart from KCBS too, is in KCBS, you don't have people standing up there and saying, oh, well, I use DB180 or I use this. They might post something and tag someone if they're sponsored by somebody, but these people were people that were just using the rubs, and I never asked them to do anything, and they would just start tagging it. And promoting it without me ever having to ask them. And for those people and all the people that were doing it, I'll be forever grateful, because DB 180 wouldn't even be close to the level that it is now without those people all using it and then shouting it out and then tagging it and promoting it. And then it's just kind of started growing and growing and growing. And I'm having trouble keeping up. So
that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it is. And I've learned a lot too within the process. So I'm just a guy that liked making stuff taste good. And I believed in the product, and I wanted to make a really, really high quality product, and just to be able to use myself. Even I just wanted to use it myself, save myself some money on buying rubs, because I was one of those guys that buy everything too. I've tried probably, I don't know how many rubs. And that's kind of what, when I very first started trying to think that I wanted to create my own, I'd open my cabinet and I'd have like 40 or 50 different rubs, it seemed. And I was just like, man, I don't need 50 rubs. And I've tried them all, and a lot of them are good. And it's such a saturated market. I didn't know what I was getting into. I never would have imagined that it'd get to the point that it's at now, just because it is such a saturated market. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of rubs, and there's a lot of really, really good ones out there. So to be fortunate enough for people to pick mine up and enjoy it, then I'm real thankful that it's happened the way it's happened. But it's grown to the point now where me or my wife are having to almost consider quitting our job to take it over full time.
Wow.
So,
I mean, I can attest. It's what you've done is amazing. But talk about the process. Like, when you come up with this kind of stuff, how many like times did you have to like trash it and start again, or add to and subtract to? Were you very fortunate that way, or did it take a really long time to kind of dial in the rub?
I was not so fortunate. It took me, oh man, the pork rub. So the pork rub was the hardest to also like find a co-packer that could match my recipe, because the pork rub has 17 ingredients in it. And whenever I started experimenting with it, I would make batches and then I'd taste it. Okay, it tastes all right out of the bottle, but I'm not really a big, let me taste what this tastes like out of the bottle type person. I want to taste what it tastes like cooked on a food, because I personally don't like the taste of my steak and beef rub out of the bottle, but on a steak or on beef, period, I just love it. It's just not, when all my rubs are MSG free, so they're not going to have that huge pop of flavor right out of the bottle. To be able to come out with something that doesn't have any MSG and still get a pop in it, you have to be very mindful of how you're using salt. And I make sure to stay away. I don't use table salt. It's all natural sea salt or kosher salt that's in any of my rubs. So, but the pork rub, I had to scrap that. I don't know how many times. And then I finally dialed it in whenever I got that first like perfect score. Really, that was the first time that I hit with it. That was the recipe that I had developed and that would have been the first rendition of that recipe. So whenever I used that rendition and I got a perfect score, I said, okay, well, there might be something to this, but rub's only a component of the recipe. So I'm going to hold off judgment until I see, how it does again. And that was in it was either, I still want to say it was in 2019. It was either 18 or 19. I can't remember. My years get mixed up, but it was in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And then 2 weeks later, there was one in Bixby, Oklahoma. And it was a pretty big one. There's 56, 57 teams there. And then I got another 180 in pork. Then I was like, okay, this recipe's done. So I was super, super fortunate to hit that like that. But that one took a long time to develop. The steak and beef, I was actually more fortunate to where I pretty much only had one handmade batch in my first handmade batch that I made. I just got lucky and nailed it.
Nice.
So
it's hard. I've tried to do my own too, just for, the restaurant. It's holy cow, man. It's a process and you never know you're done. And what's cool is I do it for the restaurant, right? But you did it for competition. So when you hit that 180, you're like, all right, I did it. I don't have that. So I just keep on adding to it like a crazy person. Next thing you know, I'm going to ruin it, but it's a fun process.
It's a fun process, but it can get draining too. Like grill all. So grill all that one took a long time. So it's hard to, you can't take like the results from 1 or 2 competitions and then make changes off of that. So because you could have hit a bad judging table, you might have overcooked your food. You don't know. Like you can't make the changes based off of that small of a sample size. So I was making changes every 4 contests, and even that is too small of a sample size, I think. But trying to decide what you need to change is the hardest thing to do, because you don't want to change too much. You have to change one thing at a time, because if you change too many things and then it works the next time, you don't know what it was that was hurting you to begin with. And then it might work once and then not work the 2 times after that. And then if you try and change something back, you just end up going in circles. So you have to change one thing at a time, and you just have to pick that thing. So I try to focus whenever I'm developing and I'm looking at things that I want to change. I try to focus on the things that I think can offend judges the most. So like salt, spice. So your salt, your heat, a smoke flavor, and those are the 3 things. And then sweet. So salt, sweet, smoke, and heat are the things I kind of tried to focus on adjusting here and there, and then testing out. So the final version of grill all, whenever I finally figured it out and hit with it, the last adjustment that I made was I pulled all the sugar out of it. And that was a big thing for me. That made the world a difference. So once I pulled 100% of the sugar out, it didn't have much sugar in it to begin with, but once I pulled all the sugar out of it, it was like a game changer. The first time I tried it after that, I was like, holy cow, this stuff is amazing. So from there on, the first contest that I did with the current version of grill all was in Kansas City. They had a triple, and you had to cook on a chimney in the 3rd round. Well, that was also the first time I decided to bust out my seared steak at a contest. And I seared my steak B and steak C, and I grilled steak A, and I used grill all on all of it. And I finished, and there was a lot of teams there. I think there were 76 teams, 76 or 77 teams. It was a lot. And I got 7th in steak A with my grilled recipe with grill all. I didn't hit with my seared steak and steak B. And then I got 8th in steak C with my seared steak. And I was on that one, I was less than 1 point out of first place. So the difference between 1st and 8th was less than a point.
Ouch.
So had I just gotten another point in anything, then I'd have got first place. And that's been the challenge for my seared steaks, has been the appearance scores. So I hadn't been able to crack a 47 yet. And that's kind of what's been holding it back. So, but yeah, that's kind of how it all started, to where I got lucky with a couple of them, like the grill all, the all purpose, and the pork took me a really long time to develop. The steak and beef and the chicken and ribs, I kind of got lucky with those, where I was doing really well with them right off the bat. So like the chicken and ribs, I was just slaying it in chicken all year. In 2019, I think I finished in KCBS. I finished top 5 in 8 of my 10 contests I did. And I finished 3rd overall in the chicken category in the nation for the teams that did less than 10 contests. So that one I just got lucky and nailed it right away. And then the steak and beef was very similar. So, but those other 3, those were grueling process, really long process. Cause every time I make a change, I wait 3 to 4 weeks for my co-packer to send me back a new sample with that change in it. So it can draw out a really, really long time. So I think the all purpose took me 27 weeks before I've got it to the point where it hit the bottle. And then I ended up having to make one more change after it hit the initial bottle. So, and that's something you never want to do, but unfortunately I just felt like I had to. So, for however many people got the very, very first batch of AP out there, Sorry, I made a slight change, but I think it was needed. So,
and let's stay on that sear for a second. You just did a video with BBQ Champs Academy, which I've watched. It's an absolutely amazing video. And you put a seared steak in, which makes you a national treasure, just so you know. And the reason is because the long story is that Greg Rempe of the Barbecue Central show said he'd pay my entry fees if I seared a steak. So we started a steak revolution, a sear revolution thing. And it was hard, you know, and fortunately for us on the West Coast, especially in Utah here, we were able to get enough attention where we actually got pretty decent appearance scores.
Nice.
But it's unfortunate because a lot of people in KCBS, you know, I hear it all the time in KCBS, you know, why do we have to do the chicken this way? Why do we have to do this way? I go, because you guys did it so often that's all the judges know. And we're here in the SCA and it's so infant now that we have the opportunity to do something a little different, you know, and not make it so every single person in 5 years has to do these grill marks. And then you come on with this video and, you know, to brag a little, some of these sear steaks I've done were absolutely gorgeous, but the one you do in that video is unreal. I mean, the thing is it's a work of art. So it's cool because I want to be able to have that become a thing. So we're not just tied down to one thing. And searing's hard, but like you mentioned in your video and you just mentioned now, it's hard to get past that appearance score, that 47. And I get people that say they don't want to sacrifice their golden ticket because of a sear.
Right.
What do you think we can do to push that ahead and make a sear more of a, you know, a traditional thing that is more common?
The only way and the only thing I can think of is to get more seared steaks out in front of judges. The more that they see it, the more that they're going to understand that you don't have to have grill marks on a steak to have a really good looking steak. If it has a nice crust on it, on that sear, then it should get 10s on appearance too. So, my first suggestion would have been to have SCA potentially make the judging classes require a pan-seared steak be presented to the judges to taste. Because I'm a certified judge for SCA too. And whenever I took the class, all we ate were grilled steaks. All we were looking at were grilled marks. And that's what the judges are seeing right off the bat. So it's not really any fault of the SCA. I don't think it's intentional, but they are starting to show. I know that some of the judge classes they're doing now, they're starting to show pictures of seared steaks and stuff, but I'm talking about when you're in that judging class and you're learning how to look at the appearance and do all the everything that it entails. They should also be tasting seared steaks and not just tasting grilled steaks and not just seeing grilled marks on steaks. And then I think that's the only way that it's going to get to where it can grow, really take off and start growing. And I'm going to try and be somebody that can champion it in a little bit too, because I've gotten 3 calls with a seared steak, and it's even like one of the competitions I missed a call in and it dropped me down to 13th because of that 47 in appearance. But I got 50 in doneness and a 50 in texture and a 52.4 in taste. So with a 50 in doneness, a 50 in texture, and a 52.4 in taste, I dropped to 13th because of my appearance score. So when you see something like that happen, and that was probably the best looking seared steak I've ever made in my life. I was uber confident in that thing. And I posted a picture of it to my Facebook, and everyone was just like,
exactly what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone was like, holy cow. And that's one of the pictures some of the judging classes I think are getting shown of that picture, saying, look at this. It has a crust. It's even. It's all the way across. It has really good color. Why would you not give this steak a perfect score and, appearance just because it doesn't have grill marks? That's kind of unfair to do that to a cook, because like you said, in KCBS, it gets to the point where I would say until this past year, when people started really experimenting in chicken and started doing legs, nobody was doing legs 2 years ago. Everybody was doing thighs. And that's pretty much what it is, because that's what they want to see. That's just what they're used to. And a lot of it is, I think it just gets to the point where even if they start introducing the seared steak to the new judges, the old judges still haven't seen enough of them to know what to think yet. And I don't know. I think it's funny because a lot of judges and promoters will reach out to me or something and say, man, we enjoy those seared steaks and seeing you post pictures of them. And, oh man, I wish that would come across my table. I'm tired. A lot of judges are saying they're tired of just seeing grilled steaks and only eating grilled steaks. And I said, well, I can tell you how to change that. Stop hammering them on appearance whenever they hit your table.
Yep.
Give them 10s in appearance. And then you might see people start doing it because, like you said, people don't want to feel like they're sacrificing their golden ticket because they decide to turn in a seared steak. So it does take a lot of guts to go out there and do that, knowing that there's the perception, at least, that the seared steak's not going to hit as well and that you might be potentially at a disadvantage if you're turning it in. The other aspect of that is it's hard. I tried to be very careful on whenever I was searing a steak. I tried not to tell anybody I was searing a steak. I just tried to make it a surprise for that day because I had so many people asking me on social media. And then it got to the point where people were asking me at steak selection if I was searing a steak. You got to be careful there because then people, I mean, haters are going to hate anyways, but I heard people whispering about, oh, if Will turns in a seared steak, his box is marked because no one else is turning in a seared steak. So I tried to make it very, 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 I was very careful about not publicly in any way stating that I was going to sear steak. And I would just say, I'm just going to make the decision when I get there. So that's kind of the way I'm going to play it in 2021. And I'm going to sear a lot of steaks this year. Now, between now and Worlds, I'm not going to sear any steaks because I'm not going to sacrifice, possibly winning a world championship because of it. Maybe, like, to me, I'll sacrifice a competition. I'll sacrifice in one contest just for the sake of finding out all day long, because I've already thrown over $1,200 in entries at seared steaks. So to me, just for the sake of trying to get more seared steaks out there, I'm going to run a seared steak quite a bit this year. But between now and Worlds, I'm going to be running grilled only. So it won't be until after Worlds that you'll see me start posting more seared steaks and boxes that I turned in.
And that is not fair. Let's unpack a couple things. One, they shouldn't use that steak you post on Facebook because that's not fair. No one can do that. Secondly,
right.
They're like, here's the Michelangelo. Now you all have to beat it. Get out your little paintbrushes.
Well, yeah,
it's an amazing steak. But you get the point. It was such a, oh gosh, I remember it. And all I do is see just posts of steak and barbecue all day. And I remember that distinctly. It was such a cool steak. And you mentioned, like, I love the class thing. That's cool too. That should absolutely be implemented. But another thing is, a friend of mine, Nate Benson from Uncle Jesse's Barbecue, he's a steak cook and a good one at that. He suggested if you have like a double or a triple or even a quad, make one of those, like you said, you had to cook on a chimney, make one of those a sear only, that would be a cool option too. So you're inundating all of these judges with these seared steaks. And we were the only ones searing in Utah. I was. So yeah, we were marked. It is what it is. And my thought to that is, if you don't want us doing that, then sear a steak. I can't help that. I'm not going to not sear a steak because you feel like I'm being marked. I am, and that's a fact. Everyone knows I'm the one that sears the steaks in this state, and that's about it. And then when it comes to your table, me. I know all the judges. That's my steak. Sorry, it's not my problem. I'm not going to not do that because of that. But I think that it's important to get out there, and for me, like, the taste I've done on every single seared steak I've done is the highest I've ever gotten. The taste always hits so well, and I just think it's such a better steak. I love it. And so for me this year, and this is, of course I have a history of searing, but after watching your BBQ Champs Academy class, I think I'm only going to sear this whole year. That's all I'm going to do. So I hope to be part of that, that we can, and you're doing it. And if you're listening to this, guys, give it a shot. I know that I've had some guests on here that have committed themselves, I think even Johnny Joseph said he would. So, you know, maybe we can get some of these big wigs to do it. And then next year, not this year, but next at Worlds, you can be like, I'm searing my steak. You know, that's what we need.
Right.
We need a revolution. It needs to happen. But
yeah, I think it does too.
Touching on that, that class. So, tell us about it. Like, tell us about your class on the BBQ Champs.
Yeah, so coming through, like, after experimenting with the grill all and then getting it to the point where I did, I was posting the seared steaks kind of on social media, and I knew there were, you know, a couple other people out there doing seared steaks. I just decided to kind of grab the bull by the horns and start trying to do it myself too, because when I did like the recipe that I teach and my method that I teach on the class, I perfected that in my kitchen. So I was doing that in my kitchen, and I was like, it got to the point where it was my wife's favorite steak. It was my kids' favorite steak. It was my favorite steak. And I was like, this is so much better to me than than any grilled steak to me that I had. I just prefer the taste better. So once I started posting pictures to social media, and a bunch of people started following me, and then I started getting results with the grill all, like that Kansas City competition kind of kicked it off. I get two calls out of 3 with that many people. Then I got, like, I think the next week or 2 weeks after that, I got like a 9th, and then the Oklahoma championship was the next week, and I seared my steak. That one steak, you know, that you said you remember, that was the night before the Oklahoma championship at a Friday night contest. And then because I dropped to 13th, that was the only reason that I didn't sear my steak at the Oklahoma championship, was because of the results of that Friday one. So it's probably a good thing I didn't, since I got first place. So I won the Oklahoma state championship. And then doing those seared steaks and stuff, I talked to Mike Steele with BBQ Champs, and he was trying to decide if he wanted to do that, the seared steak thing, or trying to decide if it's something that we should take, and, you know, if it was something he wanted to bring in to put out there and do a class that included a seared steak, or if it was just kind of like a fad type deal that was just going to kind of fizzle out. And luckily he decided that he wanted to move forward with it. After I won the championship, he called me up. I had talked to him before the championship when I was really starting to post those seared steaks. And I was like, I just need to get them to hit and start winning. And then once I start winning with them, then that's something different. There's not a seared steak class out there. So it's something different that people might be interested in, because most of the people that were messaging me, asking me how to sear a steak and stuff, it's not searing a steak perfectly is not an easy thing to do. It's significantly harder than grilling a steak. So when I started doing that, and people were seeing my pictures, and then I was just posting steaks I was cooking at the house even, and cutting them open and showing people the doneness and the crust that I was getting on it. After I won the Oklahoma championship, Mike Steele called me up and asked me to come down to film BBQ Champs. And I was like, okay, yep, I'm going to come down and do that. Well, there's a contest in El Dorado, Arkansas, right? You know, that weekend that we're going to do the filming. And it was like 2 weeks away. I had 2 weeks notice, maybe. Went down, stopped. I cooked in El Dorado on the way down there. I got first place there. I didn't sear my steak there either. And then went down to Shreveport and filmed a class the next day. And then it was just filming the class the way that we filmed it, and being able to show that seared process in addition to, you know, my grilled recipe that I won the championship with. It was something that I was really thankful to be able to do, or even be involved with. And then having that come out, like, I think there's a lot of people that want to try that seared steak. So if anybody is even halfway considering running a seared steak at a contest, if they go watch my class or watch those videos, I show exactly what I do there to make a competition, like straight up competition seared steak, how to get a perfect even crust, because I've seen a lot of pictures of steaks that some people were turning into, and some of them, they just wouldn't have an even crust, and it'd be like bare meat on half of it. And then maybe the edges would have a crust, but there was no crust in the middle. And I saw some pictures of people posting that saying they got 49s or 50s in appearance as well. And that's where I was like, oh, okay, well, seared thing might have a chance here. And then I started turning in those, the even crust all the way across seared steaks. And I just hadn't been fortunate enough to crack that 47. So it's something that I'm on a mission to do too. So I'm right there with you, trying to start the revolution to where, yeah, I would love to, in 2021 World Championship, because since the one in 2 weeks or 3 weeks is technically 2020, but 2021 World Championship, I'd love to turn in a seared steak. I really would. I'm not scared to turn in a seared steak at any given contest. World Championships just a little bit different. So at this point, I'm not confident enough to do it. It's in Texas. And I will say, out of the states that I've cooked in, Texas is pretty hard on the seared steak. I cooked in a competition down there, and there was a girl that was cooking in the tent next to me, and she was cast iron searing her steak. And I watched her, and her steak looked good. I thought it looked good. I didn't see anything that would make me think otherwise. And she finished DAL. So I was like, seeing those scores like that in Texas. And I've got a lot of friends in Texas who cook in Texas, and most of them are like, oh man, I don't know. I wouldn't bring that. They're all pretty much saying, I might not bring that sear down here, but at the same time, I hear judges in Texas, some judges that I know that judge in Texas, saying that they would like to see it. So yeah, it's just one of those things. It's kind of a controversial thing right now, but eventually people are going to start doing it, because people want to be different, and they want to branch out and do something a little bit different. Whenever you get monotonous and doing the same thing over and over and over again, then people start getting bored. So I think that people bringing in the seared steak is going to be something that kind of takes off in 2021, because you got two options. You can sear the steak or you can grill it. And then I know a lot of people are like, well, what if you sear the bottom and then just put grill marks on the top? I've heard that comment. I don't know how many times. I know guys that have tried it, and none of them have had any sort of success with it as far as getting calls go with that type of setup, where you're searing like the bottom non-presentation side, and then you're just putting grill marks on the top just to satisfy the judge's eyes, I guess. You're playing with too many flavor profiles at that point, because the profiles are totally different. So my seared steak's my favorite steak that I've probably close to I've ever had. I've had two other competitors' grilled steaks that I would say are probably my favorite tasting grilled steaks that I've had, even better than my own grilled steak. But to me, and it's just funny because it's all personal taste. That's the subjective thing about it, is like, I like black pepper on my steak, but I found out in my the judging class I did, I found out that other people don't have that same sentiment. So, because we're sitting there talking about all these steaks came through and we all tasted them. And the other judges that were in the class were like, that was my favorite steak. And the ones they were saying was their favorite steak was like my least favorite steak. So the one that I thought was my favorite steak, they said was their least favorite steak. So it's fun like that, how the profiles can be so different and so subjective. But I think that a lot of people like the taste of seared steaks with, when you're butter based in a steak and you get that flavor in there. It's just, there's nothing that I can do to describe it other than it's just straight awesome. So I make a lot of them at home, and we really like it with like chimichurri. There's so many things you can do with it. It's just like super, super good. So I'm happy that I was able to teach the class and be able to show people exactly how to do one for a competition. And that's the biggest thing too, is I started thinking, what if people were kind of on the fence about whether or not they wanted to turn in a seared steak? Once they see that class and they see exactly how to do one for a competition, maybe that'll push them over to try it, and be like, you know what, I am going to run that in a competition because that thing looks amazing. So I hope that I've in some way encouraged people to at least try it. And whether they do or not, I hope that, that it's something that kind of picks up steam and starts taking off a little bit more, because I would like to see more of a variance, and I'm sure the judges would too. So I truly do think if we all start throwing those seared steaks in there here, you know, and enough people start doing it, I think the judges that have those hit their table are going to start scoring them higher, because they know if they don't score them well, eventually it could kill out, you know?
Yeah. And you damn near killed Mike Steele. You know, he, like I said, I own so many of those videos, those BBQ Champs Academy classes. And I don't think I've ever seen him that genuinely like over the moon for something he's eaten. You know, I mean, I'm sure he's having the best food from the best cooks in the world, but man, I hadn't seen anything like that before. I thought he was going to have you cook another one just for him. You know, it was kind of crazy.
Right.
And
yeah, no, I agree too. He loved that steak too. And it was genuine. And I did too, tasting it too. I was like, oh man, it even went down the wrong tube on me, because it was so good. It was one of the best seared steaks that I've ever made. Yeah. And I just followed the exact process I've been following, and I just nailed it to a T. And yeah, he really enjoyed it. He ended up eating a lot of that steak after the cameras cut off. And I think he even had saved a little bit to have his wife try it, just because he was like, wow, she has to try this steak, just because he hadn't seen one before. He said he hadn't seen one done that way before. So once he tasted it and seen how different it was, I think it got him a little excited too. Yeah.
And, you know, as someone who does seared steaks, it was hard for me. Another hard part is that when I do a grilled steak, you know, you throw in your cooker and that's it, right? When I was doing seared, it was hard because I had my Camp Chef Explorer, my pan, and my Green Mountain Grill for the reverse sear, you know, and that's a lot of equipment, and it kind of defeats the purpose of SCAs for some people. Some people think, well, I can go and just throw everything into my Kia and head down to this contest, you know, but when you're doing a reverse sear, that's not so easy. But the genius of your class is that you use a Camp Chef outdoor oven deluxe. Is it the deluxe?
It's the professional.
The professional. And yeah. So the way that you use that is, dude, I'm telling you right now, and I'll tell you that it does come with a holder. You can like just wrap it up and carry it. No longer does that reverse sear have to you have to worry about that anymore, because the way that you do that reverse sear is super simple. Like, it's actually simpler than my setup now. All I have to do is get a table, put that bad boy on there, boom, and I'm done. And that's all I need to sear a steak. So that for me, I mean, I learned as a steak searer, I cannot tell you how many little things I picked up from what you did that is going to help me a ton. Like, I can just name 5 right now, but I'm not going to. But that specific thing, the way that you cook it, makes it so simple, so easy, that it's kind of like not, I mean, unless you don't want to go buy, you should go buy the freaking outdoor oven. Who doesn't go outside? Who doesn't want to cook in an oven outside? Go buy it.
Right.
But the way that you do it is so simple, so awesome, that it's hard not to want to try it, you know, especially if you have that system. And,
you know, before I bought the outdoor oven, I wasn't using the outdoor oven. You know, I haven't even technically, I think I've turned in 1 seared steak that I cooked on that outdoor oven. So that outdoor oven is a great tool. But before that, I was using a Dutch oven. I had a Dutch oven, and I bought a circular cooling rack. I'd put it in the Dutch oven. I'd throw the Dutch oven on top of my chimney, and then that's how I brought my steaks up to temp. So I would bring my steaks up to temp for a reverse sear in my Dutch oven, and then I just throw my skillet. You could throw it on top of a grill, or if you do have just an outside burner, you know, that all you have to do is get it up to the temp that I get it up to, and then you can sear it there. So whenever I did it, I actually was doing it and using the chimney. So you don't even need a burner. I was taking a chimney, a Dutch oven, and a skillet, and I would bring my steak up to temp in the Dutch oven, and then I would throw my skillet on the chimney, and then it'd get up to the temp I want. And I mean, you saw how long my steak was in the skillet. It's not a horribly long process. Nope. So all I needed to do was get that skillet hot, and I could do that on a chimney all day long. So that's why I was so successful at the Kansas City one on a chimney. If they changed to where their doubles had a chimney cook on the second one of everything, I'd be a happy man in 2021 because I've got that one down.
You just sear it.
Yeah, and I had talked to a promoter or judge that had talked about, like, he said he mentioned the same thing that you did about possibly having some to do like a sear only contest, and they were talking about even trying to talk like the shed into doing it like a big massive contest to that size, saying, hey, it'd be a really good idea is if we had a seared only contest. So we haven't seen one in the SCA yet, but seeing the one where you're required to cook on a chimney, that was a different thing. And I think a lot of people were receptive to it because it was just different. You're throwing in, some variance that makes part of the competition stuff fun when you're just having to do the same thing over and over and over again. Don't get me wrong. I thoroughly enjoy SCA contests, and like going when I didn't know what to do this weekend. Because I didn't cook. I was like, what am I supposed to do on a Saturday? Like I had no idea what to do. So I wanted to cook. So I did a practice cook. Isn't that funny? So whether the 1 week that I'm off and not cooking in SCA, I just fired up the grill and did a practice cook on that. And 2 nights before that, I seared 4 ribeyes in the kitchen on my cast iron skillet using the same recipe I used in the class. And then we made up a batch of chimichurri and just went to town.
Wow.
So it's funny though. Yeah. Like, I kind of forgot what we were, what the main focus was, because I tend to ramble if you can't tell. So, but it's just, I really, really do hope that the seared steak takes off this year.
Yeah, I do too. I really hope that it does. We need something that just, we're not getting locked into something, it's just, that sucks. We need more options, and everyone's going to cry about it if you don't. Trust me. I don't want to hear it in 2 years if no one out there searing and they cry that they have to use a grill grate. So sorry, not going to listen to you. Not going to pat you on the back for that one. But, and doing grill grates is fun too. It's just, I think it's, it's a prime time now. It's still in its infancy. Now we're ready to go. We need to do something about this sear stuff. But, and then like I said, in your class using that Camp Chef, maybe you should get on that right now, because I think you're probably going to sell 100 of those. So you might want to talk to Camp Chef.
That's the funny thing is I already talked to Camp. I've been talking to Camp Chef about it, and I'm like, I told him, I said, hey, look, man, I'm going to sell a ton of these things, because even at the SCA contest that I've done so far since I started using that, I take it with me, and I've been doing my ancillaries on them. And I was ranked first in ancillaries before we went down to Decatur, and Tana Pendre finally had a chance to cook, and then she just wiped the floor with me. But she's a heck of a cook. So, but I was doing it on the Camp Chef oven, and it makes ancillaries easy. So if you did want to do ancillaries, you have an oven outside. So yeah. I tried to tell Camp Chef that. I was like, hey, I'm about to sell a bunch of these things. And I kind of had a relationship with Camp Chef in 2018, but it was kind of just a one-time thing where they had supplied me with some stuff, and I hadn't really heard back since. So it's something where I don't really care. I don't need anything from Camp Chef. They don't need to give me anything. I'm going to promote the products that I believe in and that I like. And if they want to reach out to me and, do something for me just to show their gratitude, then that's fine. But I'm not going to sit there and twist their arm to try and get them to give me something or give me some sort of benefit just because I'm, promoting their products for them. So I'm not sponsored by them. I had them listed as a sponsor, but in actuality, they're not really a sponsor for me. It's just, I enjoy the products, and that it doesn't bother me to tell people that I enjoy a product. If I truly enjoy the product, that's the difference between, where I'm at now and the point that I'm at now. I'm in a fortunate spot to where I can pretty much choose the sponsors I have if I want. Some of them, it's just the way that it's grown to where it's at. So I'm going to use the products that I believe in, and that I can get behind, and that I can have no problem telling people to go buy. And I would tell anybody to go buy one of those professional outdoor ovens, because they are sick. I love the things.
Okay. So what is the future for you? Do you plan on doing a lot of rubs and anything else? Are you going to go sauce, or just what's the future for Deadbird?
Um, I wore myself out in 2020, and I'm still kind of feeling the effects of that. But I'm actually nearing a deal with a major nationwide chain to start carrying the entire line of DB180. And two more have actually reached out to me and requested samples of it. So I've sent them the sample bottles of it. So I think you're about to see DB180 kind of blow up. I know it seems like it has to an extent now, but SCA cooks are using it, some KCBS are using it, but the general public and the backyard cookers and people that just like grilling in general are starting to get into it now, and they're starting to request it. So I'm getting requests from all over the place where they're saying, "Hey, we're getting requests on this. Would you be interested in us carrying your product and distributing it to all of our locations?" And I was like, yes, I would be very interested in that. That sounds beautiful. So I haven't decided on the sauce thing yet. So like the sauce game is, I don't know what to think of that, because I live in Oklahoma. You can go to Walmart and buy a bottle of Head Country for $3 or less, and it's good.
At Walmart?
Yeah, Walmart.
How many Walmart's here, dude?
Yeah, well, Walmart in Oklahoma, you can go buy Head Country in every flavor possible for $3.15 a bottle.
Oh yeah, but can you buy Casey Masterpiece? Bet you can't. That's what we got.
I think they have Casey Masterpiece too.
Of course they do. That's all we have. That's the nicest sauce we have.
Yeah. I mean, they only have they have the Head Country here, of course, because Head Country is based in Oklahoma, so that's why it's everywhere in Oklahoma, and it's just a good sauce that you can go buy for $3. So when I start thinking about like the sauce type game, and I'm not like ruling it out completely in the future someday, but it's nowhere even close to on my radar right now. The next thing I'll do is I think I'm gonna work on. I have a few ideas kind of floating in my head, and I was trying to decide if I wanted to be done. I was trying to decide if I wanted to be done with creating and developing for a little bit, but then there's just some chain of events that happen that make me want to start working on a new rub for 2021. So I've already started the development of it, and it's just in the infancy right now. So we're probably, it could be 2022 before anybody hears or sees anything about it. But it's something that I'm going to do for sure. But I have to also look at, like, I have 6 products already. So right now I'm focused on growing DB180. So for 2021, I really want to grow the brand, and it's kind of hard to get that you have. I'm shocked that the retailers that have reached out to me want to carry the whole line. Normally they'll say, send me your 2 or 3 best or something like that. Where 6 rubs takes up a lot of shelf space. So I have to think, and it's something I think about a lot, is it's gone so hard and so fast, and it's grown so quickly that I don't want to saturate my own brand by coming out with too many products, if that makes sense. So I don't want to, I look at some brands and I'm like, okay, how many rubs is too many rubs? There's only so many seasonings that you can put into a bottle. Like, really, there's different, I like doing it. That's my favorite part about the whole thing, is doing the development part. I just like developing, and I like focusing on the highest quality natural ingredients I can, just to make something that's really, really good. And I try to do things that set my rubs apart, and I try to be unique. So I don't think there's any rubs out there that taste like mine personally. And that's kind of what makes me feel really good, is to this day, I haven't found any that taste like mine. So for me, I think I'm definitely going to be creating one more rub, because I've been wanting to do something like this for a long time, and it is going to be something that can be used in the SCA. But I'm just, until I figure out, exactly what I'm going to do with it, then I'm going to probably keep that one pretty tight. And then aside from that, I've thought about getting into the injection game and the marinade game and stuff, and that's just something that I'll have to think about later on too, because I have good I have really good marinades that I make too, that I've always made, but again, they're liquid marinades. So then I'd have to decide if I was going to try and find a bottler that could do my liquid stuff, then I'd have to do it that way. Or alternatively, I'd have to start developing and figure out a way to turn it into powder form that you can just mix up. So that's another thing that's going to be pretty far off if I start dabbling into that. But right now, it's just going to be kind of the next step for Deadbird and for DB180 is just to grow it and focus on just sitting back and actually I've been going nonstop, but I haven't really reached out and called a bunch of people and retailers and stuff. And when we think about it, me and my wife were going over it the other day. I think we're in 48 retailers right now. And then this other major retailers picking us up, but we haven't had anybody just sitting down calling retailers to try and see if they want to carry DB180. All the retailers that we're in, the majority have reached out to me because they've heard of it or somebody's along the way requested it in some sort of way. So thinking about it like that, if we could just dedicate our time to really focusing on growing the brand, then I think that DB180 could be really, really huge in 2021 and kind of blow up. And I hope, and I think that Grill All is going to be one of the top rubs, I think, in the SCA of 2021. Each year it seems like you have that one rub that kind of pops for the year that's real popular. And that one I think is going to be pretty popular. I'm not, and I'll never be cocky enough to try and say it's the best one out there, because there's, like I said, there's just so many good lines and so many great products out there that I just want to put a really good product together out there. And if people buy it and enjoy it and use it with success, then I'm going to say, yeah, I think this is one of the better rubs in the SCA. And personally, I do think that my rubs are some of the best in the SCA. And I'd say that you could probably find a few hundred people that would agree. So,
you sold out of Grill All pretty out of the gate, didn't you?
Yeah, so the Grill All.
Because I remember it was like, oh my gosh, you got to get it. Everyone here, especially. And then you couldn't get it.
I couldn't get it, yeah. And it was, that absolutely blew my mind. I did like a limited release and I sold out. I sold 240 bottles in 12 hours. And I can't even tell you how long it took me to sell my first 240 bottles of steak and beef. Whenever I first started, took so long. And then I do a release like that, just a limited, hey, I have a limited supply order, 10 cases of rub. That's what 240, or 20 cases of rub. Sorry. It's 12 bottles per case. So I had, my first order was 20 cases. And then as soon as I put it out there, it just sold instantly. So it was insane. And I ended up dropping off like over 100 orders at the post office that next day, because some people were buying 3 bottles at a time, just to try it. And I'm like, this is insane. It's just so, I'm so humbled and just honored that people would do that. Like, they've never tried, they didn't taste Grill All, but to just log on and buy 3 bottles without ever even tasting it, that just blew my mind. And it just it made me kind of semi-emotional, just because it was very, it was just very gratifying for me to see that people would do that without ever even having tried it themselves or do anything. And it supports me and it supports my family, and to be able to grow it to where it's at right now. I don't have many words to say how thankful I am for everybody that's tried it, even just tried it.
And like I said, it's one of my favorites. I have right over here a C. I'm my own barbecue supply store right over here. And I have full rubs everywhere, but yours is gone. So that's a test. And I actually use yours. I don't use it in competition. I have tried, but just didn't really get around to fully using it. But at home, I use that. It's gone. I use it all the time on steak. It's amazing. And I wanted to use the rub, but then I heard the Grill All was coming out, so I wanted to wait. So we'll get on that. Maybe I'll start doing that for competition this year. But it's an amazing rub, man. It's awesome. Yeah. So I need to get
certainly appreciate it. But the Grill All too and that was the whole thing. I started when I pulled that sugar out. It was with the sear in mind. So once I seared my first steak with it, I was like, yep, I just got lucky, and it happens to be really good on grilled steak as well.
Yeah. And do you have the combination that you have and the way you put it together is really brilliant, and it all works together super well. So I have friends, like I said, that use it constantly, and their steaks are awesome. And I went down to Simi Valley just now and did my own thing with my own rubs. Wasn't great. Not going to do that again. So I'll probably have to get on board with the DB180 stuff and get going on that. Especially
couple adjustments and you could be right there. You never know.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I can't focus on that right now. That's too much. That's too much. I'm going to go with the Johnny Trigg here and just say that people make it better than I do, so I'm not going to worry about it. But so you can get your stuff on your website at deadbirdbbq.com. And you have all sorts of different stuff on there, not just your rubs, but a lot of different stuff. You get the Arcasibi combo on there. You can get the extreme stuff. You can get all sorts of stuff that's on your website, and you can purchase them there. So if you guys are interested, and you have some which I think is super cool. Now, you can go out there and just get all these rubs and pick and get one or two or three here and there. But then, you might not like it. You might sit on the shelf and then, whatever. But all the best rubs you can buy, it's called the Ultimate SCA Kit. And you can buy all these rubs that are kind of hitting right now. Johnny Joseph's, all of your stuff, just everything that is, worth getting. Trust me, I've had every rub on this, and every single one of them is great. So that's one thing they can get on your website as well. That's a cool idea, by the way. I think that's freaking brilliant. I think more people should do that.
I've been wanting to do it for a while, and I talked about it, and then I kind of started it out. I was calling it like a starter kit at first, but then I caught a lot of flack for calling it a starter kit. People were like, "Oh, well, that doesn't seem like much of a starter kit because shouldn't they only need 2 or 3 rubs?" And I was like, "Well, I have like 2 or 3 rub bundles on my site. If you want to buy one of those to start, then you can. But in my experience, SCA cooks more than any other are willing to experiment with flavor profiles, and I'm the same way as you. Like all the rubs that I put in that kit, I tried to make it all the rubs that are really seem to be really relevant now within the SCA. And it's not that that's the only rubs that are relevant in SCA by any means. There's still a lot of other really good rubs out there. Yeah. They're just rubs that I carry in stock that right now are doing really well on the circuit. So if someone was looking to get into the SCA and they wanted to experiment with what a lot of people out there are using, they can get it all in that one kit.
Plus, if you're a BBQ Champs Academy junkie like myself, you basically got everything covered here. You're kind of the BBQ Champs Academy steak accessory as well. Kit.
Right. Yeah. And I try to make sure I carry everything that I know that people, I know what a lot of people used to. So I try to make sure that I carry everything that everybody uses. So it's I really try and carry SCA specific. I've been really trying to dedicated to people that are really out there doing SCA, and I'm actually about to start carrying Riley Wright, Steak Princess. She came out with her. She's a young girl, and she took it upon herself to create her own line of rubs. And I think it's so amazing. I reached out today and just said, "Hey, I want to carry that on my site." I don't care if people buy a single thing of it. I just want to buy it and carry it on my site to support that, because my kids are too lazy to do something like that. So for her to go out there, do something like that, and just have that work ethic at her age, I just think it's a wonderful thing, and I'm going to try and support her any way I can. So SCA cooks that come out with rubs, it's a pretty good bet that you can find those rubs on my website at some point.
Yeah, and it's a starter kit, but it's also, I mean, you can't go wrong with that. If you can't find a combination with those, you just, I hate to say, you might want to look into chili cook-offs.
Right.
And she's great, man. She starts sponsoring people. She's a hustler, man. That's cool. She's a really cool story.
At an early age like that, I was the last thing on my mind whenever I was that age. So for her to go out there and do that, it's very commendable for a young lady to show that type of work ethic. And 100%. I hope she sells 1 million bottles of it.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and hanging out with me today. And I am a big fan of what you're doing. I will be doing a lot of the stuff that you do on the circuit going forward. I appreciate what you're doing with the sear, that you have, you know, that you have the cones to do that and get that out there, because I think that's going to be something that's super cool in the future. And I believe that your platform using that is really what's going to be the catalyst for that in the future too. So I think that's super cool. And I thank you for that as someone who likes to see stuff different. And I'm sure everyone will thank you in the future. If they're not now, maybe they're looking at you going, oh, he's going to sear that steak. But in the future, like, oh, I remember when I saw Will sear those steaks. That was
right.
You know, we're going to look back on it like that. So,
and I sure hope that that's what it turns into. I'm going to try and make it a point to, whenever I'm at doubles, I'm going to try and sear one and grill one. And I just I'll never say which one I'm doing. I'm just going to do it and not tell anybody. And then I'll post afterwards.
There you go. But you know, in that class, man, I cannot say enough about it. I mean it. Such a good class. And I want to I know we've talked about the class, but I want to say one more thing. The detail in which you go into every single step is what really puts you ahead of not ahead of the rest, because there's a lot of information in all those podcasts. I recommend get them all, to be honest. But with you take a lot of time into all of the every single steps, and you walk through every little detail and why. I mean, your steak selection video is 45 minutes long, you know? And I learned a ton from that video. You know, I've seen them all. So it's just every little step you did was super cool, really detailed, and two different ways of cooking a steak, which is unique. So that's, you know, I highly suggest getting this class. Such a good one. So appreciate that, man, for doing that.
I appreciate you taking it, man. I really appreciate you taking it, and anybody that takes a chance to do that. So
also, I will say real quick, your Facebook page is super cool too. If you buy it, you get in the Facebook page, but you're also updating everyone on the changes, which is unique too. So if something changes, you're going to get that from Will.
I think that's important too. And that's really the thing that you benefit with from something like BBQ Champs, is not only can you go rewatch the video too, because I've taken an in-person barbecue class before, and going back and trying to read my notes was it was insane. If you don't take good notes, you sat down and you spent a lot of money to learn that stuff. And even in those classes, you're watching what they're doing through a mirror, or you're watching it on a little TV screen. So it's not like you're going up there holding their hand while they're cutting this stuff up. So for you to be able to go back and rewatch everything that happened, and it's invaluable in my opinion. And then to top that off, not only are you getting, you know, those classes where you can go rewatch them, you get to go into a private Facebook forum where you're constantly being able to communicate with the instructor and ask them any questions. And it's for me, I don't do anything half, you know, I don't know. I don't really cuss a lot. I don't do anything half butt or half-assed. I don't half-ass anything. Let's say that. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it right. And that's why I am so focused on the detail within my video. I mean, those things aren't scripted. It's if he asked me a question, I didn't know what he was going to ask me during the class. I wanted to be as descriptive as I possibly could and tell people exactly why I do what I do and the reasoning on why I do it. And it's, to me, going into that level of detail is what is going to help somebody. Like I spent $20,000 learning everything learning all the stuff that I learned to be able to teach people in that class. I spent a fortune for someone to be able to come in and basically pay the entry fee to one contest to learn all that. If you're a new cook and you're looking into getting into it, whether it's my class or Matt's or Terry's or John's or Shauna's or any of those classes, it's going to put you, ahead, and just, you're going to make your money back in no time when you're paying such little. And then to be able to continually communicate with the instructor and be updated on things when some things change, because some of us do tweak those recipes up a little bit, and then to be able to have access to that is invaluable in my opinion, because then you're not just getting that one class, that one method, that one recipe that they used 2 years ago. You're getting what they're doing right now because you're in this group with them learning along the way. So
yeah, and
I think that's what's cool about the BBQ Champs stuff. I really do. I really think that the way that Mike Steele runs that and does that BBQ Champs thing, it's a really, really, really cool way to go about it. And he makes sure that the production level is high quality. It's not like watching a YouTube video. So hopefully people understand that it's super high quality production and it gets right up close to everything and you can see everything that's going on. It's not like just watching a random YouTube video. It's far and away more than that.
Yeah. And if you guys want to see Mike Steele do his best Red Fox impersonation, go ahead and watch when he tastes that seared steak and you'll see. But hey man, where can people find you if they want to get you on the socials and anywhere else?
Yeah, if you want to link up with me on socials, you can always find me on Facebook, Will Collier, and just PM me. And Deadbird Barbecue DB180 is the handle for my Facebook page and for my Instagram. So you can do at Deadbird BBQ is what I follow, is what I mostly check on Instagram. I have a personal profile on Instagram, but I don't really use it that much. So if I'm on Instagram, it's at Deadbird BBQ. If you send me messages on there, you're linking directly to me. If you're going to reach out on Facebook, go ahead and do it to my personal profile. If you reach out to Deadbird Barbecue's page, I might not see it as fast as I would see it to my personal page. And I like seeing people do well, and I'm out here to help anyone I can. You know, if anybody has any questions for me or just wants to link up and like, hey man, just to talk or whatever, come find me at a competition, then I'm pretty open and I'm laid back. I get along with pretty much everybody. So
cool, man. Well, again, thanks again for hopping on and all for all you do, man, and all you're doing for the sport. We all really do appreciate it.
Hey man, I really appreciate that. So hopefully, we turn in some seared steaks, take some pictures, and then put it out there. And hopefully, I'll watch you too and follow you and see how you're doing too. And I'll be rooting for you myself.
Cool, brother. Hey, and if I get that golden ticket this year, which I will. You have to guarantee me that we will duel. You'll do a seared steak and so will I. But you have to turn in first. So that's the rule.
I'll throw down anytime, anywhere with anybody, man. I'm not scared. I love cooking, and I to do something like that's why I like watching Chopped and things like that. I love doing that type of stuff. That's SCA TV tried to do like a thing like that. They came to Tulsa, and I cooked against 2 other cooks, and we had to cook game hens, steaks, and pork chops or something like that. It was just a fun time. I just enjoy competing and I enjoy cooking. So I'm there. Anytime there's a competition that I can go to, then I'll throw down.
I'm talking about worlds, man.
Oh, I'll throw down. Yeah, let's do it. If I'm there, we're saying turn in a seared?
A seared at Worlds. If I'm there, the stipulation is I have to get there first. But if I'm there, you have to promise me.
So you're not going to Worlds this year then?
No, I got within top 5 several times. Never. That was the bridesmaid a few times. Never got that.
Okay. All right. Well, 2021 Worlds then. If you're there, then I could probably throw down and do that.
I have it on video. I have it on tape, man.
Right. Yeah. I'm definitely not searing my world steak this year.
Okay.
I'm gonna sear a lot of steaks this season. A lot.
Heard that. All right, man. Take it easy. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. See ya.